Thank you very much. Thank you to our panelists, and thank you to our moderator, Andrew Humphrey, WDIV in Detroit. As everyone knows, Michigan is bordered by 4 of the Great Lakes. And as you mentioned, sir, fresh water is certainly a vital issue. And fresh water itself is a vital, not only state resource or local natural resource, but really a global natural resource. And it seems like its demand is becoming greater and greater, to the point where many people are calling it blue gold. So to that extent, it seems like many more people, whether it's in the state of Michigan or outside the state of Michigan, other parts of the world, in fact, would actually like to take it, for lack of a better word. Do you happen to agree with this, Professor? And for the other 2 panelists, what implication does it have for the people locally if Great Lakes water is actually taken?
Well, it's an incredibly loaded question, but I would say the outset, it's a really important question, critical question. Who does it belong to? And ultimately, I think conceptually or ideologically, is it a state resource, which is how it's viewed right now, or ultimately is it a federal resource that could be controlled outside of Michigan, the Great Lakes? The Great Lakes Charter, a group of U.S. states bordering the Great Lakes and a couple of Canadian provinces have collectively governed this and to make rules. And so far it's been viewed as a state resource, but I think Kevin brought this up earlier. I couldn't agree more. Water will increasingly become a critical limiting factor in many parts of our society. It already has. You look at to our south, but look at California. And what's going on there will happen in other places as well. We are blessed to have the Great Lakes, this freshwater resource here, and it's imperative, it's critical that it be somehow protected, I think, and viewed as a resource and not something to exploit. And I'll stop there.
I would say, for me, looking at, again, sort of reuse of land, where people live, how they live, etc. One of the questions I had heard posed was, not necessarily by you, but rather the attractiveness of this area because of that asset. And thinking, again, very long into the future, will this mean sort of infusions of new population, and how can we plan for that? And again, I think to the extent we can be thinking now about creating more density, providing diverse opportunities for people to live in communities that aren't as car dependent. So hopefully in cities like Detroit, even if they do gain population, how can we rebuild the city in a way that's more responsive and resilient, even if sort of things change related to the Great Lakes and the access to fresh water. In the meantime, we should minimally be making sure that we're preserving that resource, not polluting, not dumping untreated water, sewage into the water, things of that nature. And I think that's where a lot of our focus is right now.
And one last thing to follow up, it will become an increasingly valuable resource and viewed from everybody. For us, and I think opportunity is a great word. It is. It is an opportunity for us in Michigan and really the whole region. But we have to remember that in terms of how we view it and protect it.
Does the city of Flint have the resources to plan long-term in holding on to its water and making sure that it stays clean as the demand increases?
As the demand increases, well, I think what's interesting is Flint is currently, as part of this whole backstory, entering into a regional authority pipeline to get water, which will produce it eventually at a much cheaper rate than buying it treated from Detroit. So we can dictate how much treated water we actually buy versus, how much raw water we want to buy. So I think that'll help. I do think what's important is, when an individual leaves their house, not only did they leave their house, but then that's one less family you have buying into the water system. So then that cost is spread across multiple people. So we don't think about that when people pack up and leave and leave the infrastructure. So that'll be a challenge. Flint is unique. We have 3 lakes and a large river. So, I think the hope would be is that, and through some of the zoning that we're proposing, we would protect those environmentally, but also encourage potentially density around those areas to try to increase and make it an opportunity, which anywhere else you go in the nation, or at least in Michigan, waterfront properties, very difficult for us to afford. So.